Okay, I guess it's time, and maybe we're waiting for a few more people, but I propose to start on time. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining. Um, Today, we're going to talk about chatbots and how we can use them for, in test automation. I'll give you a lot of, insights about different technologies that are used to build bots. Uh, Probably most of you know who I am. I'm Anton Angelov. I'm CTO of Automate the Planet, and most of you know me from my blogging on Automate the Planet each week. Um, so, without further ado, let's discuss the agenda because we have only 1 hour. First, we're going to talk about, in short, what are the chatbots. Then, in order to understand what the chatbots are, I will give you an example from one of the bots that I built. And then, when we see the different features that bots, provide, I will give you a hint, from all of the services and different technologies that basically I used before to write such a complex bot. We're going to look basically how you can authenticate in the bot, which is, it's quite strange to, include authentication in chats. Anyway, it's possible, and basically we are using Azure Active Directory, where basically you're going to see, the native Microsoft login. Then we're going to use and talk about different, the so-called cognitive services that are basically machine learning algorithms for solving particular tasks. And of course, I will show you one more that it's actually not a Microsoft technology, but we use it. It's called Google AutoML, and how we use it to analyze failing test results, and how this is integrated into the bot. And of course, I will show you a lot of code examples. We won't have the time, from scratch to write everything because it takes a lot of time. But I will give my best to give you hints about the requirements, what you need, how to create a new project, and show you some code examples. So let's begin. First, as I said, I will give you examples from the bot that I built myself for our open source framework Bellatrix. Of course, it's called Bellatrix chatbot. It's something like a bot that can help you to write faster test automated tests. Basically, it is available on Skype, Teams, Messenger, and all other major platforms. So I will just quickly, I'm not going to deep dive to give you a lot of demos, but I took a few screenshots so that we can move faster, just to show you the different features that, the bot have. Because we already, like maybe half a year ago, we did a webinar with a lot of demos regarding this bot. I'm just going to use it to show you actually the code behind, and all of the service that we actually use. So as I said, the first thing is that in order to communicate properly with the bot, we need to know who are you. And I didn't want to write my own login authentication and everything. This is why I used basically the login system that is provided by Microsoft. A little bit later, I will mention actually that we are going to talk about Microsoft Bot Framework SDK, which I used to build the bot. So this is why it's quite easy to integrate, your bot with Microsoft Azure Directory. We'll look into that a little bit later. So when you, for example, type login, then the bot is displaying this particular, box. When you click it, you're prompted to at your email address and password, and if you don't have an account, to create one. Of course, the bot administrators should add you to the Cloud Azure Active Directory so that you have the right permissions, right? After you, successfully walked in, then this particular interface is displayed with this, login code. This is again something automatic from Microsoft. And then when you paste this basically auto-generated number, you're successfully walked into the system and bot welcomes you. And afterwards, you can complete all of the different actions that authenticated users can do in the bot. Also, of course, you can log out, and from time to time, the bot basically has like a scheduled task for logouting all of the users, and so that they can again log in. Then, what else can you do with the bot? Of course, the first time when you log in, we're going to display like this particular help screen. However, you can anytime ask the bot to provide you help. You can use different, phrases. We'll talk about this a little bit later, how basically the bot can, decipher the different phrases, but basically it's using machine learning algorithm for that. So even if you don't write it exactly like this, and even if you write help me or please give me help or something like that, the bot will understand that your intent is to ask for help. And basically here we're explaining the different features that the bot can provide to you. Then another thing, basically again, that is provided through a cognitive service or machine learning algorithm is that you can search directly in the bot for particular topics. I connected the bot with basically the Automate the Planet site, the Bellatrix, and other helpful test automation resources. So instead of going every time to Google, you can ask directly the bot, can you search for something? And it will go to the list of these particular websites, and it will give you the 3 most relevant articles. Again, we will look in a bit how we do that, but basically we are using, again, machine learning for custom search powered by Bing, the Bing search engine. Then it can basically answer to frequently asked questions instead of going directly to the website and going to this section and read yourself. Basically, you can ask any of these questions here. Again, no matter how you phrase them, and the bot will answer to you. Again, we are going to look into this particular cognitive service that you can use in your bots. It's called frequently asked questions.ai. Again, it's a cognitive service provided by Microsoft. Then, as part of the same, cognitive service, basically we added a help for providing the different locators like CSS, XPath, etc. For example, you can ask the bot what is XPath ID containing, and then it will give you an example instead of every time searching Google and then Stack Overflow if you cannot remember the locators. Again, it's using the same engine in machine learning. And maybe one of the coolest things is that you can add it to group chats. And basically we added this functionality about different notifications. For example, we connected the bot with the framework, and when a particular important test is failing on production or somewhere, it can give you, basically notify you that there is a bug and give you a screenshot of the failure or a video, which is quite cool. And of course, as part of this solution, we built, at the end of the presentation, I will give you a hint, basically how we implemented that. But we connected the bot together with the whole execution lifecycle. And basically, when you execute the test with our runner, it will generate for us detailed test results analysis and report, where it's not going only to collect and save into the database the test times and make these calculations about slower than average, slower than the last run, etc. But the most coolest feature basically is that it can do a machine learning on the test failures, and it can decide and prioritize the test based on these criteria here, whether it's a real bug, potential real bug, whether it's a problem in the test environment, whether it's a problem in the WebDriver, for example. This is the core library issues here, or a test cleanup, test data, etc. Again, here for this particular feature, inside when we generate the report, we're using this service of Google AutoML, or basically this is an easy way through an interface to generate your own machine learning model and then deploy it and use it. Again, at the end of the presentation, I will give you a hint what it is, and we'll show you how you can call this particular machine learning algorithm from C# code. This is like an example from our reports. Again, the tests are prioritized using the machine learning algorithm. And now let's talk about actually. This is actually part of the big part of the lecture is to present to you how we can build such bots. As I said, I use the Microsoft Bot Framework SDK. It's like a platform that has a lot of tools for building the bot, testing it, then publishing it to Azure or locally to your server, and connected to different chat platforms. As you will see, it's basically a simple REST API, or basically a bunch of them. But all of the complexity is hidden from you. Basically, they provided the templates, all of the libraries and everything. And there are a lot of examples on GitHub. This is actually how I started to build it after I read a book and watched several courses about it. But even if you don't do that, the documentation is quite impressive. They have a big community about it. So what do you need? You need .NET Core 3.1. Then you need, in order to test your bot, you need to download the latest version of Bot Framework Emulator. You can specify that during the installation of Visual Studio, or if you're adding additional features to it. Again, of course, you need Visual Studio, the latest version of Visual Studio 2019 or later. And as I said, it's basically ASP.NET Core application API web service with a lot of asynchronous calls. So you need to be familiar how to use that. But again, even if you download the templates, it's relatively easy to understand what's going on if you read the documentation. So after you download the additional templates, you can create this echo bot. Basically, it's going to, its replies, I think, if I remember correctly, will mirror your own, like what you type. So this is how easy it is. Everything will be created for you. This is actually a few images from the bot emulator. As I said, when you start the bot, it's going to listen on this particular port for messages, and then basically you can start chat with it. Basically, as I said, every message and response, if you, for example, attach Feedware or even in the emulator, you will see that these are simple get and post requests with JSON body. This is it. Like the whole content of who the user is, who is the chat client, like for example Messenger or Skype. Everything is in this particular JSON. Then once your bot is ready, you can deploy it. The easiest way is to deploy it to Azure when you have such an account. Basically, they abstracted everything. When you basically you need just to create a web app bot. As you can see here, you can choose many things. Basically, they have a free version of it because you are paying for amount of messages per second or per day, something like that. But if you don't use it so heavily, basically it will be free. Again, you need just to mention where, in which region of the world you want to deploy it, and afterwards there is a separate like a service in Azure where you can set up all the channels. Basically, in order to set up, for example, Messenger or Skype or Slack or Teams, you need to create in these particular platforms to create a developer account. Again, they have a comprehensive documentation how to do that. It's not something that you need to pay for example, for Messenger or Skype. Just you need to provide a token, which is a number, and add it to the chat. That's it. As you can see, this is an image from the channels here. I already completed here the setup because even for Facebook, it takes like half an hour to set up everything. And depending on what you want to do in the bot, maybe you will need to, once the bot is ready, before publishing, probably Facebook will require to review the code or whatever, something like that, just to test it to see that it's not harmful and it's okay to connect it to a Facebook page. So yeah, basically you have many other channels. You can send messages, SMS, using Twilio. You can even use direct speech using Cortana or Alexa. I tested it with Cortana and it's working well. It really depends on what are the commands. Then in order, basically, as you know, for the storage, this is not a regular, web application. Probably you can use, I haven't read the documentation about it, but probably you can use SQL Server or something like that. However, for everything that I'm going to present, I used the cloud storage in Azure. Here, basically, I used for all of the logic that is behind the scenes happening in the bot, in the runner, and in the machine learning. I'm storing all of this information in the cloud, in these cloud tables. Also, I'm using heavily queues with messages. Again, they're completely in the cloud. And for large files such as screenshots, videos, HTML files, I'm uploading them to the file share in the blob container. Just to imagine how we use these cloud tables, I can give you a hint just to see how we connect. Basically, in the configuration file, we're putting some in these app settings here, depending on the environment, we are putting like a GUID so that we can connect to the particular cloud storage. And then, as you can see here, I created this generic service for connecting to the particular table. Basically, every table and all of the columns are represented as C# objects, similarly to other ORM frameworks such as Entity Framework Core. But again, this is different. In the bot and in Azure Functions and such, we're getting the stuff in the app settings as environmental variables here, like that. Because later on, when you deploy them to Azure, basically there is a secure way where to put, these connection strings and everything, so that they are not checking to a source control. So basically here we're getting the connection string, and afterwards, as you can see, we're not using entity framework or anything, but they have a special library that it's installed through the Microsoft Windows Azure storage. So as you can see, it's built asynchronously. We're executing queries, and they have their own syntax for how to do that. Because they have their own partial keys and row keys and everything. Again, most of the code you can get it from their repository. It's free in the documentation, so you don't need to read something specific for that. Maybe I can show you again the same thing about the queues. In order to send messages, it's just a single class. I built it generic again. Every message here is just a C# class, nothing more. Again, we get the connection string as environmental variable, and then you can send and receive messages asynchronously when we basically serialize and deserialize them to JSON. That's it, nothing really special or so complex. And again, they have a Windows application for displaying the same, because this is from their website, but basically you can install a Windows application for writing queries and everything on your desktop machine without using their website. Then, as I said, this authentication and everything, it's working directly with connection with basically Active Directory deployed to the cloud, again in the Azure platform. Here I registered my application, Bellatrix Azure Bot. And there, of course, for security reasons, I'm not displaying the users, but basically you're just going to this user tab here, and you are inviting and creating all of the users. After you invite someone, he will receive an email, and afterwards he will be able to, authenticate in the bot. Nothing really fancy. In a minute, I will show you the exact code of the bot so that you can see how easy it is to display this particular snippet there with the login button. Everything is happening automatically for you. The next service that we use in the bot so that it can be like smart bot, like you can chat with it and basically redirecting you to the right service and trigger the right features, is the so-called LUIS, or Language Understanding Service. Basically, this is again a cognitive service provided by Microsoft for, basically when you type something, we are sending the request to this cognitive service, and then underneath it's doing a lot of analysis to basically, no matter what is the phrase, it will try to understand your intent, no matter the phrases. The whole idea here is that, as I said in the beginning, we have like 6 or 7 different functions in the bot. And also we have this small talk feature where you can ask the bot, for example, what is his food, or whether he likes to dance, or whatever. It includes a lot of similar questions. And no matter what you ask him, he's going to answer appropriately. But in order this to happen, we're not going to write switch cases or big ifs, but everything is going through this language understanding service. And I can show you that basically they have even a UI here where I already, I have an account with all of these intents. Basically, the intent is, redirecting to the correct feature of the bot. As I said, we can search for something, we can train the bot about basically these training features about training the machine learning algorithm for analyzing the test results. Also here we have the intent for help, for change notifications, and so on. So when you open basically, for example, one intent, you will see that here this UI where I can specify all of the different phrases that the bot can basically this service can understand. And I was trying to think about the different ways how people can search for something. And here I have defined an entity, which is basically, as you can see here, we have two entities, book type and search entity. The whole idea is that when you search for something afterwards, I can get this here that it's under crossed. I can get it so that I can pass it to another cognitive service for the custom search. And of course, after we basically publish and we can test it, for example, here I can type different things and then I can see the scoring. Basically, the scoring means if we have 6 intents, the algorithm tells you with percentage how sure it is which intent is the right one. And of course, I can train it, I can test it, I can deploy directly, and then I can call it from my bot. When we review all of the services, I will show you all of the code, but maybe I can start doing that before moving on. So, as I said, this is my chatbot. It's ASP.NET Core Application API. There are a couple of important classes here. The first one is the dialog. This is basically every time you're going to go through here when there is a particular action. For example, when we add a member to the chat, as you can see here, asynchronously, we are sending a message. We are sending a message through this bot message factory. And then we are running different dialogues. The dialogue is the boxes in the chat, right? So again, there are different events here that are happening and we're doing something. Maybe the most important thing is this main dialog, which is basically displayed every time when you are already walked in. And as you can see, we're using a lot of different services. But the first one is actually this all-out prompt, which is basically the login dialog. And when we add the dialog here, the first time when you try to speak with the bot, it will require every time for you to walk in. Again, this is something that it's a Microsoft class, and you can read in the documentation how you can use it. Basically, for all of the different intents and features in the bot, we have different so-called dialogues that are displayed. And actually, where is the place where we call this voice service? It's actually here. The first time when you pass the login, then here we are calling this bot service dispatch. If we open it, you will see that basically this is from the bot service. This is the so-called voice recognizer. This is this dispatch property. We connect it through some, again, configurations from the app config. And it comes from the Microsoft Bot Builder AI voice. And then we have the same for Q&A that I will show you in a minute. But basically, we are passing what your current context and the message, and based on it, we're getting the top scoring intent, basically what you want to do, to search, to answer Q&A, to help, to train, etc. Again, this is, I'm not sure. Yeah, this comes from the Microsoft Bot Builder NuGet package. And this is actually how we decide in this huge switch case in which direction the conversation will go. Okay, so what else? We have other cognitive services to make this work. As I said, we need to publish this language understanding, and afterwards, basically, we need to specify the URL of the cognitive service so that our C# code can use it. Again, it's working with JSON responses, basically get and post. Like this. This is a simple JSON response where, as I said, the most important thing is this scoring. Based on it, basically, you're going to train the algorithm. Then, what is the QAMaker? The QAMaker is, again, a natural language processing service, a cognitive service by Microsoft. You're, again, paying for particular calls to it. Usually, I mean, up to 10,000, I think, calls per month. It's free. Afterwards, you need to pay for it. But again, it's not so big money, right? It really depends on how many requests you send. And again, it's similarly to WIS. It can basically understand, and it's like a huge database for different phrases and answers, and you can change them, you know. This is how actually this small talk feature of the bot is possible. And actually they, they built a huge database for this small talk for you. And afterwards you can add your own, through the UI that I will show in a minute, you can add your own pairs of questions and answers and connect them. Which is really great. Like you can create really huge dialogues like this. And of course, afterwards, if, for example, for some reason WIS or Q&A are not understanding something, they are going to display to the user. But afterwards, you can review all of the failed attempts, and then you can redirect them what the bot should answer in these particular cases and what the service should answer. And the next time, this is the part of machine learning, you can check that through the UI, and the next time when you type this thing, it's going to display the correct answer. Maybe I can show you the UI right now. Again, it's a different website, QAMaker.ai. As I said, we have a really huge database. As you can see, 12 pages. Just as a joke, we have a question, who is Madonna? One of my developers wrote that, so as a joke, we were displaying your mom. But as I said here, I put the different, as you can see, locators with different phrases, and then we're receiving, this particular answer here. As I said, this Q&A, they have pre-built database for you. So as you can see how many questions there are, and it's going to answer with this. And this is how basically the small talk is available. In order to use it in the bot, basically we have a dialog again from their examples that I connected to my bot, where it's a little bit more complex. But again, we're, as I said, we're basically connecting it to this cognitive service. Again, we are paying only for the first, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 calls, it's free. And then there is a small amount for each 1,000 calls. Then what else? In order to make the search possible, I used another cognitive Azure service called Bing Custom Search. It's basically an API similar to Google, that you can use it through, web requests, no matter whether it's a C# code or you can connect it to whatever you want. Basically, this service, it's like your own custom bot that will, go to the websites that you have connected, and it's going to create this index for you. And later on, many people use it to display, for example, search for their forums or whatever. Actually, we did the same, but we connected that to the bot instead of displaying the search in our website. Again, this is another website by Microsoft called customsearch.ai. And here, as you can see, I added 4 websites that we are going to crawl. And we're displaying different results from them. Of course, we can add much more, and it will work. Again, this is even more powerful because they have APIs for searching in videos, for images and such. Right now, I connected the bot only to work with articles because this was my use case, but you can use it for even more complex scenarios, right? And let's see basically how we use it. This search info here, as you can see, we are displaying different cards with URLs. These hero cards are basically this, if you remember the open URL, etc., and we are connecting here the URLs and everything. They have such for their abstracted way to display proper cards and in the different platforms. But yeah, here, this is my custom code that I wrote so that we can display the 3 of them. Again, there are a lot of code examples in their GitHub repo. It has over 50 projects with all these services connected there. So I used many of them to use it for my own bot. Then, in order to use everything, and for example, when I need to calculate something, it's not a best practice to make calculations and wonk actions in the bot itself. This is why I used a lot Azure Functions to do that. What are the Azure Functions? Basically, the Azure Functions, you can imagine that they are compute on demand. If you don't need it, they're like a REST service exposed for you, but you don't need to care about where to deploy it, etc. Also, you can add triggers to different events. For example, when a new entity is added to a table, you can trigger and execute this particular cloud-based code. And basically, it's really great because you can deploy them separately without redeploying everything and causing like timeouts in the service. So I used the word for calculating the this machine learning analysis of these results, for sending the these particular triggers for when there is a bug or I need to notify someone about test results. Before moving on, I can show you just a few of them. I have a separate project for the Azure Functions. It's called a functional app that you can deploy again in Azure. And for example, here for the bug reports, as you can see here, we have a function name. It's basically just a C# method, right? It just using a specific format. Right now, this is, you can imagine that this is just a single API for making post requests. Because right now, this is, we can make HTTP calls to this particular method after it's deployed. And again, it's using JSON, so we can serialize, deserialize different objects. And afterwards, you can do particular actions here. For example, here is another one that basically we are here I think we are sending some notifications to a queue. This is what I'm doing here. And as I said, they can be triggered to just a post or a get request, or they can be scheduled to execute over time. For example, this is scheduled through this timer trigger, and for example, this is going to be executed every day at 9:30. And as I said, there are others that are basically triggered when there is an entry in particular queue or table, which is really great. I mean, as I said, it's quite easy to deploy them. Right now, I'll show you the interface for that. When you want to deploy the bot or the functions, basically you just click publish. Let me show you how easy it is. Basically here, right click and then you click publish, and then you're going to see the UI here, where basically you're connecting to your Azure account. When you click finish, it's deployed to the right environment. In order to set up an environment, basically you need to choose a service plan. These are the production ones. However, until you're developing, etc., they're dev and test modules where they're basically free. But of course, when you deploy to production, you need, as you can see here, SSL certificates, auto scale up to 10 instances depending on, on the demand. Also, as you can see here, they have these staging slots, or basically they give you like 5 different test environments so that you can switch between them if you choose this particular thing, which is great. They have daily backups and everything. But yeah, you can choose to which environment you want to switch. And depending on the environment, of course, the connection strings are different and they're connected to different queues and cloud tables. This is really, really easy to have test environments, production, and everything. Also, on top of this, we're using in Azure again, connected to the Azure Functions and to the bot itself, the so-called application insights. What are the application insights? If you have heard about, I'm sure most of you did, about Google Analytics. This is like a Google Analytics for bots and for applications in Azure. And here you can see, the traffic to your bot or to the services or to the Azure Functions. Here you can write your custom queries about the different exceptions, the users, the countries, and all of that. It's really great. It's almost automatic. I mean, it's just 3 clicks to add it to your service. It's almost, I don't know. When I check the billing, it's almost free. I mean, because you're paying only for the storage. And again, it's big data storage directly hosted in Azure, under your Azure account. And then lastly, in order to achieve, as I said, this the whole thing with the analysis of the failed results, the thing that I do is that I created a machine learning algorithm in Google AutoML. Why I chose this platform? I did good research. And I wanted to, check something fast to see whether it's working. I'm not, it's a specific role to be a machine learning specialist. I'm not such. This is why I wanted just to create something automatically for me. And actually, when I tried, it's basically working pretty well. How it works, basically, you're here, in order this to work, we have an Azure function that it's converting some of the data from Azure table storage to Google BigQuery database. It's basically the cloud database in Google. Then when you have all of the data that you want to use for training the algorithm, you need to have at least, 1,000 rows in this table. Basically, you can use also Excel sheets if you want. It's up to you. When you provide the data and this data is clean, what does it mean to be clean? For example, imagine that in order this algorithm to work, my bot is parsing the C# test results files. It's converting them to C# objects. Then it's basically getting the exception messages and the stack trace. But we need to clean the stack trace. For example, in many cases, there are wrong paths in the stack trace that you basically don't need. They are going to pollute, the results from the machine learning, and this is why we are removing these watch paths and cleaning some of the data, so that basically when you run this prediction algorithm, it's going to choose the right model for you, and it's going to use the data to train the algorithm. And here the different, again, data that I'm supplying to the algorithm. We have the duration of the test, the exception message, the different failure types that I already showed. There are 6 of them. Basically, this is the thing that the algorithm will try to predict. Then we are providing the clean stack trace, and then we have the test full name. And after the analysis, the Google AutoML decided that it's going to use here the binary classification model. And afterwards, and this happened like I trained the algorithm only for 1 hour. If you use more time, probably the results will be more precise. Again, in order to test everything, I started Google trial, which gives you like $300. And this is how basically I paid nothing for it. I mean, in order to try it. Because afterwards, basically for every hour that you're going to use for training, because it's using a lot of machine power, I think it's costing something like $40 per hour. It's a lot of money. But again, when you want just to try it, it's completely okay. I mean, afterwards, of course, the retraining of the model is not happening quite often. Afterwards, you are just going, as other cognitive services, you are going to pay only for the different calls, right? And how we call this particular cognitive service, I think I have it somewhere here just to show you. Again, here it is. This is, of course, not the whole URL, so that I don't show you some secrets, but we're just connecting to a REST client through the URL after you deploy the model. You're getting some Google credentials, and basically you're making just simple post requests, to the model. That's it. It's just a single method after you deploy it. And then I'm just converting the predicted result to my enumeration. That's it. Nothing really fancy afterwards. Of course, there were a lot of trial and error until I figured out how to make it work, but in the end, it was working quite well. Yeah, before moving to questions, again, maybe this whole thing, someday I will maybe create a training for it if you are curious. We have the only training that left for this year is level 2. It will start on 14th of December. And yeah, this is the last official training. Like 2 days ago, we finished level 3, which was quite intense, and it was really, really interesting. But yeah, maybe I will create a separate training for that. We will see if there is interest in it. And if you have questions, please ask them in the chat. Of course, if you don't, you can just drop me an email if you want to know something, and I will be happy to. There is a question: can chatbot understand languages other than English, such as French? I think they do. Yeah. we can check that, but I think WIS understands many languages, so it's not a problem. And I saw this solution for working for many, for example, Facebook pages where you can schedule, for example, an appointment for haircut or and basically they're using many different languages, so this is not a problem. Just you are going to, for example, need to hard code some stuff, I don't know, maybe in French in particular parts of the code, but I guess it's fine. Yeah, as I said, we're almost done. But if you have questions and cannot like write them right now, there is one Q&A. Yeah, you will be able to check the recording later. We were like wondering whether we need to upload them or, because many people are just waiting for, for me to upload the videos instead of participating in the webinar. But anyway, I guess, as you know, I prefer to upload and not everything for free on the website, so I will do that. There is one more question. What can the backend store of the bot be? SQL Server database tables, Word document, SharePoint. As I said, I haven't tried to work it with SQL Server. There is only one requirement, I think, for some of the history of the configuration to happen in a blob storage. The Bot Framework is basically creating these files automatically, and you don't have control over them. But I think for the rest of the logic that you're using, I think you can use whatever storage you want. And I think it will be completely fine to use, for example, ORMs such as Entity Framework Core connected to SQL Server, MySQL database, etc. Also, you can basically in I think Cosmos DB in Azure, you can use this particular engines as well. So, and you can deploy them in Azure. So there is no problem to use some of them. Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching. As I said, probably we'll upload the video and share it maybe next week. Thank you for joining and stay tuned. I think after you can check the website, but I think there is one more webinar in December, which will be quite interesting. I will be talking about how you can basically create a library that can automatically create manual test cases for you based on the past test cases, on the past automated tests. And I can show you how to integrate that in Azure DevOps test cases, Qtest, and other platforms. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.